Pitchers and catchers report in less than a month for spring training, but there's still some questions to answer. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today, your daily source for news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, award-winning baseball writer and podcaster. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can find all my written work over at bravestoday.com. Your daily Atlanta Braves newsletter, just like this is your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. We're proudly part of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com to get started and to see all of the odds that are out. Cy Young odds just came out. MVP odds for 2026 just came out. Some interesting placement of some Braves guys. Maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. In just a few minutes, we're going to talk about kind of closing the book on Brian Snitker. Braves Fest is coming up in about a week and a half. He's being honored at a dinner that night by the Atlanta 400 Baseball Fan Club. We have club president Drew Meyer on to talk about the event and how you can sit with Brian Snitker for dinner, stories, photos, all that good stuff. But before we do that, Major League Baseball announced reporting dates for spring training. So we know for the Atlanta Braves when they will show up to Northport, when they'll start their games, and we have an idea of who's going to leave to go to the World Baseball Classic. Going to be kind of interesting to see how that works. And there's a couple questions we still have to answer here too, right? So the actual dates. Tuesday, February 10th is the day that pitchers and catchers report. This is a little bit earlier than normal. Usually it's around Valentine's Day. You know, this is moved up 3 or 4 days because of the World Baseball Classic and just players being out of camp. One, players needing to get in shape for the Classic, and then players being out of camp to go to the actual, to go play in the actual games. And we'll get to that in a few minutes. So pitchers and catchers' first workout is the 10th, which means a lot of them are going to report on the 8th or the 9th. The first full squad workout, which is when all of the position players need to be there, is Sunday, February 15th. So Valentine's Day is a Saturday this year. They can go to get to Northport on Friday or maybe Saturday. They can go to dinner and stuff on Saturday night with their spouses or girlfriends, whatever, and then they can show up to camp on Sunday morning. But something that we've seen now for a while, a lot of Braves position players, especially some of your aircraft carriers, they've been called, right? Your Austin Riley, your Matt Olson, a lot of those guys, they show up on that pitcher and catcher date. They're there early. They're chomping at the bit to get started. And I'm right there with them. I can't wait for baseball to get here. I can't wait to have actual games to talk about, even if they're exhibition games where it's a bunch of backups by the 4th inning and it's a bunch of guys you don't know of by the 8th. I don't care. I'm ready to talk actual baseball. But there are a couple things we still have to figure out before Atlanta's first spring training game on Saturday, February 21st, and their first home game in Cool Today Park on the 22nd. Now, the good news for Atlanta is there's no giant questions, right? We don't have massive unknowns about this roster. We know who's going to be in the lineup on opening day. We just don't know, say, what order they're going to be in, right? I dropped a piece over at Braves Today earlier in the week, maybe it was late last week, where I ran through different options for the lineup through a model to approximate the runs per game based on the 2026 projections from Fangraphs as to each player's performance to try and figure out the best lineup configuration. And honestly, a lot of the results that came out of that had Jurickson Profar leading off and Ronald batting second. When I went in there and manually adjusted the model and said, hey, one of the restrictions I'm placing on you is Ronald has to lead off. It changed the order somewhat. So you want to go check that out, bravestoday.com. There's not a ton of difference. This is all kind of tweaking and optimizing on the edges. But I still think it's really interesting, and I'm really curious to see. Walt Weiss hasn't, to my knowledge, explicitly said who's going to bat where. From what we understand and from what we know, Ronald was the one who went to Brian Snitker last year and offered or volunteered to get moved down in the lineup to help drive in runs. It wasn't Brian Snitker's decision to bat him third. Reportedly, it was Ronald's decision to bat him third. So I'm curious to see what happens here, where they go from there. And then just, what the coaching staff in general looks like. Obviously, Walt Weiss running the show and taking over for Brian Snitker. And again, more on Brian Snitker in a few minutes. But bringing in a lot of these new coaches, Jeremy Hefner, obviously working with all the pitchers. Antoine Richardson, the first base coach, really excited to see what kind of impact and what differences you can see just in spring training with some of the guys. I think if he's fully healthy, Antoine Richardson is the kind of guy that can really change the game or diversify what Austin Riley does, because Austin Riley is sneaky athletic and sneaky fast. So I'm kind of curious to see about some of that stuff. How they set up the bullpen and the rotation is really interesting. We've talked about this before. From a pure skill standpoint, Hurston Waldrop should be your number 5 starter, but he has minor league options. Bryce Elder does not. Does Atlanta bring in somebody else and this whole thing's moot? Do they go in with a plan to have Bryce Elder be the guy, but Hurston Waldrop has a chance to beat him out? Think about A.J. Smith-Shawver last year. A.J. Smith-Shawver came into camp and legitimately won the 5th spot over Bryce Elder. So one of the things I'm kind of looking for is how, one, what they say, and two, how they use the pitchers in spring training. It's not a guarantee that the order they send them out there is what you see, but it is pretty common that you'll see guys, especially like Strider. Strider always shows up ready to go, and he's ahead of the game. I'm really curious to see how they use them, who has starting opportunities, who's piggybacking on other guys, and how they look in spring as they're working on some of this stuff. Obviously, something we'll be watching for will be information about how to watch the Braves. I talked about this last week in a bonus show. The Braves are one of the MLB teams who have withdrawn from their broadcasting contract with Main Street Sports Group. Again, that is a different company from who owns Atlanta's minor league affiliates. Now those names don't overlap anymore, but they used to. But we just saw, I think it was on Wednesday morning actually, the Nationals announced Nats.TV, where they are partnering with the league to broadcast the games directly. And so the way that works is if you're in market, you can either, MLB gets that picked up by a local broadcaster, or you can pay the league directly for a separate package, separate from MLB.TV, exclusively to stream Nationals games in market. There is no blackouts in that scenario. If Atlanta, and the question here is, what is Atlanta going to do? Are they going to go back to Main Street for one last season? Have they been working on launching their own product? Have they been working on other partnerships? Do we see Gray Media pick up a larger percentage of the games? They showed, 10, 12 games last year. I've been told they do not either have the capacity nor the willingness to show an entire season, but they are interested in increasing that package. Do they increase it to 20 games or 30 games or 50 games? Right? Is that an option across the whole Southeast to watch the Atlanta Braves? And then if they go to MLB.TV, and I broke a lot of this down last week, if they go to MLB.TV, how does that impact the revenue? Because Atlanta's TV deal was considered to be one of the, I'm not going to call it the worst, but one of the most under market in baseball. Can they actually match the money by selling directly to consumers versus it being carried on cable and a percentage of that carriage fee going back? Like, can they actually make the same amount of money selling directly to consumers? We don't know, and we don't know what impact that's going to have on the payroll, which really would manifest after the 26th season. 2026 is baked at this point. It's in. You're not going to meaningfully change your payroll down now, less than a month before pitchers and catchers report. On the World Baseball Classic notes, we don't have a ton of confirmations or announcements on players with teams from their federations other than Team USA. Team USA is not completely full, but it's pretty close to full. And we know, like, one, it's going to be incredibly fun to watch. Paul Skeens, Dirk Skubal, Logan Webb is your 1 through 3 starting lineup. Holy cow. Your outfield having Aaron Judge and Pete Crow Armstrong and Corbin Carroll and Byron Buxton, that's going to be a ton of fun. Having both Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt in the left side of your infield, Cal Raleigh and Will Smith behind the plate. Like, it's a ton of fun, this Team USA group is, but no Braves players have been announced for Team USA. And at this point, I mean, the tournament starts March 5th. At this point, it's not like you have a ton of time to add somebody to Team USA, which I find really interesting because Mark DeRosa, former Brave, who wanted to be called about Atlanta's managerial job, is the manager of Team USA, and no Braves players are part of Team USA. We don't have any sort of confirmation on any of the other international teams and Braves players. Ronald said earlier in the offseason, Ronald Acuna Jr. did, that he was planning on playing for Venezuela and that the Braves have given permission for that. But the only player as of Wednesday night that Venezuela had announced was Salvador Perez, the catcher from the Royals. For those of you who are concerned about Ronald playing for Team Venezuela in the WBC, I do want to point out that last WBC in 2023, Ronald not only played for Team Venezuela, he was the starting center fielder. Not right, he was in center. He went 4 for 18 in the tournament, did not hit a home run. He stole 3 bags, was not caught stealing once, and then turned around and won MVP in 2023. So just playing in the WBC, yes, anytime you play baseball, there is a risk of injury. But the last time he did it, not only did he make it through healthy, but even though his conventional stats weren't great, he was feeling good enough and he came into the season locked in enough to cut his strikeout rate by more than half, to have the most stolen bases in any 40-40 season in baseball history and win MVP. I'm not saying he's going to win MVP this year, but I'm saying that the last time he did this, he came into the season ready to go and ended up winning MVP. It would be nice if he came into this season ready to go, didn't have any slumps or anything, and ended up looking fantastic. Again, one of the things that I mentioned, right, Walt Weiss taking over for the Braves, but we're not done with Brian Snitker. We've got one more thing we need to do with him. We'll talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Again, the MVP odds are out in the National League. Ronald has the 3rd best odds on FanDuel to win MVP at plus 1,000. He is behind only Juan Soto at plus 900 and Shohei Ohtani at minus 115. There are 5 total Braves on the board. When you get over to the Cy Young odds, there are 4 Braves on the board there. We're going to break this down probably on tomorrow's episode. But in the meantime, if you want to go in and get some early action on this, again, last time Ronald played in the WBC, he won the MVP. If you want to go in and get some action on Ronald at plus 1,000, go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app today. We are just weeks away from spring training, a couple months away from opening day, and with Walt Weiss as the new manager of the Braves, exciting transition, but we're not done with Brian Snitker just yet. Coming up Saturday, January 31st, he's going to be honored at a dinner to recognize and celebrate his history and what he's meant to this organization. And the organization throwing the dinner, the Atlanta 400 Baseball Club. I am joined by Drew Meyer, the president of the organization. And Drew, I know that every year, obviously, you guys are, you have this dinner, the Eddie Glennon Jamboree. This is the 60th year of it, so obviously it's a big round number. But there was nobody else you guys could have invited to honor as guest of honor but Brian Snitker was there.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And Lindsay, thanks for having me on today. I'm super excited to talk about this. And you're right. Every year as we go into the planning for the Jamboree, the guest of honor, it's a big debate. And I'll tell you, we had our first board meeting and it was just assumed. We were like, well, it's going to be for Snit this year. It makes sense. And I mean, the man's been with the organization for 49 years. That is, he bleeds Atlanta Braves. So we're super excited.
And like he bleeds Atlanta Braves, but I don't think people quite realize how important and how long this organization has been around and has been working in and around the Atlanta Braves. The Braves, it was originally the Braves 400 fan club, but this group has been around longer than the Atlanta Braves have been in Atlanta. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's funny because I have lived in Atlanta since I was 7 years old, right? So I'm a TBS 90s Braves fan watching all the time. And I had not heard of this organization even 5 years ago. So it's a real kind of flying under the radar type of organization. But to your point, they were really sort of the original group of businessmen that came together to help facilitate, right, all of the things within Atlanta that we needed to be able to, help and put in place as a city in order to support a Major League Baseball franchise. And so, yeah, we were the original sort of booster club that was facilitating that move from Milwaukee. And we have continued to have a really close relationship with the Braves ever since then.
Yeah, and I was reading some of the history of the organization and looking at all of the photos from the dinners with everybody from Phil Niekro being honored and seeing Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz at a dinner and all of this stuff. It's absolutely fantastic. And like I said, the Jamboree, January 31st, going to be honoring Brian Snitker. Is this event, I know that obviously the membership is going to be super into the event, but if the listeners of Braves Today, if they want to come to the event, what's in store, what's going to happen at the event, and how can they get involved with the organization and this event, this dinner specifically?
Yeah, so we are totally open to non-members as well. So we'll have to plug the website here at some point too. But yeah, any Braves fan that wants to come, we have tickets still available for non-members. And again, the whole night is going to be about honoring Snit. And we cap our attendance at a pretty, a relatively a lower number, specifically because, we intend for this event to be a really, intimate environment. And you mentioned, a lot of Braves royalty, names that people will recognize that we have honored and have had events for over the years. In fact, one year, we gave one of our prestigious Mr. Baseball Awards, which is meant for someone in the community that really champions baseball. One year that recipient was Jimmy Carter. So we had Jimmy Carter at the event and Secret Service and, all of that stuff. So, but again, we'll have a pretty intimate environment. There's going to be a lot of other Braves royalty there wanting to support Snit. And so it's a fantastic opportunity for fans to, be there, hear all the stories that we're going to tell. There's going to be, we're doing a panel with various members. Kelly Kroll, former Braves announcer for TV, is going to be moderating that panel. And some of the guys, Brian McCann's going to be on that panel and a few others. And they're going to tell, I'm sure, just amazing stories that kind of, span Snit's entire career. And then in addition to, honoring Snit, we give out the Braves minor league awards and a few other pretty notable things that for, like I said, for a true fan, it's really fun. We honored Ronald Acuna when he was still in the minors as a player of the year, right? Who participated in an event before his name blew up to what he is today. So it's also a great opportunity to see some of the future big leaguers as well.
Yeah, and even possibly players who aren't even professionals yet, but could make their way to Atlanta in the future. I know, just kind of reading the program for the night, the Jason Varitek College Scholar Athlete of the Year, Drew Burress of Georgia Tech. He's draft eligible this year. Atlanta picks picks right there in the top 10. Maybe Drew Burress ends up being in Atlanta. Like you said, minor league awards, things like that. And then there's also, a silent auction, a raffle, and things like that. If Braves fans want to attend, I know Atlanta400.org is the website to go out and get tickets. But I also this is about the Atlanta Braves and Brian Snitker, but it's also about the community as a whole. And I noticed that you guys have just recently started a foundation to try to expand that mission. Can you tell us a little bit more about the foundation and what you guys are wanting to do with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, I mean, our name says it. We're a bunch of Braves fans, and we've already talked about the history and how long we've been involved with the Braves. But, the mission of the organization, beyond just supporting the Braves, it's also supporting baseball, in Braves country. And so, right, that stretches beyond just, our professional team. And so we are super excited to formally announce our foundation, which is a 501c3 organization. So donations to the foundation are tax deductible. And, we're doing a lot of things in the community that, aren't just at that professional level, right? We give out scholarships every year, and we're going to give out a couple scholarships at the event, on January 31st. And, those scholarships we're typically targeting, colleges, JUCO programs, Div 3 programs, some of those schools that they don't have all the money that maybe some of those big Div 1 programs have.
Yeah.
So, that's something. And that scholarship, those scholarships bear Phil Necro's name. He was, while he was alive, he was super involved with the club. And that was something that him and his wife were always very excited to be a part of every year as we gave out those scholarships. There's another program, and personally, this is probably my favorite thing that we do. But every year in May, we also honor the Metro Atlanta High School All-Stars. And so,
Nice.
We have a lot of involvement with the different high school programs, and we select anywhere from a dozen to maybe 20 kids that represent the top talent at the high school level, and honor them and choose a player of the year. In fact, our 2025 player of the year will also be honored at the Gameboree on the 31st. But we've had some big names that have come through our high school all-star program. Brian McCann was a high school all-star. Jeff Francoeur. We missed Michael Harris somehow. I don't know where we dropped the ball on that one. But CJ Abrams, there's been some really big names, and that's another thing, people get involved with the club. And the cool part is if they register and come to the event, it includes a membership for a year. And that high school all-star event in May, we do it right before Braves game, honor the kids on the field. And that's another thing. Like I said, we give back and give scholar donations to high school programs through that same event. It's a really awesome program to be giving back at that level, right? These are kids that, may have a huge future in baseball, but also, that might be it. They'll play a little bit in college, and then, they've got to figure out life from there.
Yeah. It's very clear that the organization feels kind of like a lot I do, and a lot of us who listen and watch Braves today, that baseball is absolutely the best, and we have to do everything we can to support it. And in just a second, when we come back, I want to talk about one really exciting opportunity that's still out there for fans to help the to help the new charity and get to work pretty closely with SNIT for an evening when it comes to funding those scholarships. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsey Crosby, joined by Drew Meyer, the president of Atlanta 400 Baseball Fan Club. And we're talking about the 60th annual Eddie Glennon Gameboree on Saturday, January 31st. Before we go too far, though, I don't think a lot of Braves fans, especially maybe of our generation, know a ton about Eddie Glennon and just how instrumental he's been, that he was to the sport of baseball in general, but specifically the Southeast and Atlanta. Uh, why is the Gamboree named after Eddie, and what should we know about him and his legacy?
Yeah, Eddie is it's the namesake of this event, and
Mhm.
he has just always had a huge passion for being involved and basically being bigger than just baseball itself, right? I
Mhm.
sometimes and maybe people know like Roberto Clemente, right? Major League Baseball gives out that award, right? And it's a similar thing. The Gamboree is something that we're honoring, yes, some big names in baseball, and we definitely want to throw back to some of the old names that have brought us to where we are today, and that kind of really encompasses the legacy that we're trying to create there. We have a number of other specific awards that we talk about that kind of reminisce to the nostalgia of baseball.
Mhm.
We know the really big names out there, but
Right.
baseball is more than that, right? It is more than the experience of going to the game is fantastic, but we love baseball. It's an American pastime, and I actually lived overseas for a number of years, and I don't know why, but that time made me love baseball even more because I forget how entwined it is into our culture.
Yeah.
So that's what this event is absolutely about.
Yeah. I mean, it's America's pastime for a reason. And again, the Gamboree, Saturday, January 31st. It's actually at the Atlanta Marriott Northwest and Galleria near Truist Park. So if you're already in the Battery for Braves Fest, it's an easy move over there. But don't just show up. Atlanta400.org are where you can get the tickets. And like I kind of teased before the break, um, part of the whole thing with the 501c3 is you're funding these scholarships, you're doing all these great works in the community, but that requires money. And yes, the proceeds from this to get you a yearly membership to the organization. But there's another really exciting opportunity, specifically the night of the January 31st, to both contribute to the organization and get some up close and personal time with Brian Snitker, isn't there?
Yes, yeah, that's absolutely right, and we're really excited about this. And to tell you also, Brian and Ronnie are also super excited about this.
Mhm.
They know what we're trying to do at this event and on a larger scale, right? What we want to do as a foundation, and they have been so gracious to offer 2 seats at their table for the event, because this event, all the things we're talking about, there's a sit down dinner, so there is the table that you're at. I don't know, maybe like going to a wedding, you end up really close with the people that you're sitting at that
Yeah.
table. And like I said, Brian and Ronnie have been super gracious, and they're offering 2 of the seats at their table for the entire evening
Mhm.
to spend with them, have dinner with them, talk a little bit of baseball, and we're offering those seats at $1,000 each. And like I said, you're going to get that time with Snit for the entire evening. But
Mhm.
also the money that we bring in from the purchase of those tickets, we are going to specifically create a scholarship that we're going to give away, and whoever that person is that chooses to come in and donate and do that for us, their name will be included in that donation that will go along with the Atlanta 400 Foundation. So, we got any, really, huge fans that would love to have, it's going to be a good, at least hour and a half at the
Mhm.
table with Snit. This is a fantastic opportunity. If I wasn't going to have to be sitting up, on the lectern myself, that's where I would want to be.
Yeah. I mean, and so the event begins at 5 o'clock, and there's a reception, a silent auction, there's a raffle of Braves memorabilia, and some of the stuff you guys have listed on the website. Very, very hard to find things, very rare things, very exclusive things, as well as all of the names, all of the people who were coming, like you said, the Braves legends, whether it's Brian McCann, things like that. I saw a note, Paul Bird's the master of ceremonies, just a lot
Yes.
of dignitaries in and around the Braves, former players. It's a fantastic opportunity to celebrate Brian Snitker and our Atlanta Braves, but also to your point, like there's going to be tons of fun stories and just things that you didn't know and just a night of entertainment, and it's all for a good cause. I honestly can't think of a better way to spend a couple hours than helping a charity and getting to talk Braves baseball with Brian Snitker. It's a great opportunity. If folks want more information about the organization, the dinner, or just how to get seats at the table with Brian Snitker, where can they go to get more information and to go ahead and make these purchases?
Yeah, head over to our website, www.atl400.org. And right on the main page, you'll see it up there in the top banner. It's the 2026 Gamboree. And we've got, we're constantly updating it as we've had more and more, people confirm that are going to be there. Tim Hudson actually just confirmed today. So that's another name to throw out there. But yeah, they can go there, get all the information they need. Maybe snag some of the remaining tickets that we have left. We still have some spots, and would love for some new people to learn about the club, experience it, and like I said, like you said already, Lindsay, not only is the event itself going to be really cool, but you're going to be hanging out with a lot of people who love baseball just as much as you, and that's the fun part. Is everyone there? They're just huge fans of not just the Braves, but baseball itself. So the stories that you'll hear, as you're browsing through the silent auction and some of the connections you'll make, a lot of these people are season ticket holders. So you might even bump into them, at the ballpark. It's just a really awesome night for anyone who really loves baseball.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's going to be a ton of fun. Listeners of Braves Today, readers of Braves Today, the newsletter, you're going to hear all about this after the event. I'm going to write up all of my observations and my notes and my photos and my videos, and you're going to really be dealing with FOMO. Like you're going to feel like you missed out. So definitely atl400.org. Drew, thank you for your time. I'm incredibly excited. I'll be there at the dinner. I have a seat, not with Snit, but I have a seat. So I'll be there. Excited.
It's available if you want it. It's available if you want it there, Lindsay.
Listen, if we can get a few more premium subscribers to the newsletter, maybe we can make this happen.
There we go.
But yeah, there we go. But again, atl400.org is where you go to get tickets. And honestly, Braves Country, I can't wait to see you there.
Awesome. Thank you.